5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
This is About Space, America's return to space. With news and information on the U.S. manned space program is your host of About Space, David Denault. Welcome and thanks for joining me today. And be sure to listen for my special announcement at the end of our program. And there are several news stories I want to share with you on reports you may have missed. The first is about SpaceX's latest success. And joining me today from our Washington News Bureau is Rick Potlock.
David, SpaceX successfully launched its fourth batch of Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit on January 29th and landed its first stage successfully on SpaceX's drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean, marking the company's 49th booster recovery. All 60 satellites were successfully deployed and are designed to improve internet access around the world. The 60 satellites bring the total to 240 Starlink satellites now in orbit. The Falcon 9 rocket is designed to launch as many as 10 times with only light refurbishments between launches. The January 29 launch followed several days of delays due to weather and rough seas. SpaceX is not the only aerospace company attempting global connectivity. OneWeb launched its first set of 6 satellites back in 2019. OneWeb has partnered with Airbus, Intelsat, and Hughes Satellite, among others, to provide satellite internet connectivity. OneWeb utilized a Soyuz rocket back in February 2019 for its deployment. Amazon plans to launch its own set of satellites sometime in 2020, but for now, SpaceX remains the leader in global connectivity. Elon Musk, SpaceX's CEO and founder, says the company will need at least 800 485-pound Starlink satellites for moderate internet connectivity, and says service could begin sometimes this year. And when that happens, the first places to receive coverage would be portions of the U.S. and Canada. Reporting from the Washington News Bureau, I'm Rick Potlock.
Rick will be right back to share with us the return of U.S. astronauts on a Soviet spacecraft. Next on About Space Today. Are you ready to fly away on a dream vacation? For cruises and all-inclusive resort vacations, call D&D Cruise and Tours at 877-747-8631. That's 877-747-8631. And see us on Facebook, D&D Cruise and Tours, where your dreams become a reality.
The society we're living in today is just in moral freefall. Things that were unthinkable just generations ago are not only thinkable, but they're being promoted as virtuous. Our prayer would be that this new boys organization would really raise up a generation of men who are faithful fathers, husbands, citizens, and leaders that could help literally turn our country around.
Boys and young men need a call to something greater than themselves. This is the Trail Life. Trail Life USA.
After setting a record for the longest single space flight in history by a woman, NASA astronaut Christina Koch returned to Earth February 6th, along with Soyuz Commander Alexander Sfortsov and Italian astronaut Luca Parmitano, aboard the Soyuz MS-13 capsule and landed in Kazakhstan. Koch logged 328 days in space and will provide researchers the opportunity to observe effects of long-duration space flights on a woman, as NASA plans to return to the moon under the Artemis program and eventually return to Mars. Koch's 328 days is the second longest single space flight by a U.S. astronaut. And by the numbers, Koch completed 5,248 orbits of Earth and a journey of 139 million miles, roughly 291 trips to the moon and back. Upon their return to Earth, the now former ISS commander, Luca Parmitano, spoke for the three astronauts regarding the legacy that Koch, Sfortsov, and he may have had in space.
Well, I think that given the way the expedition started, specifically Expedition 61, actually the way 60 ended and 61 started with 9 people from many different countries up on the space station, I would say that it's a story of the people that made the expeditions. And the way that in a world that seems to be often more and more divided and polarized, our program creates an environment where international cooperation becomes the norm. And integration is not just a word, it's a way of life and a way of thinking. And I believe that our 2 expeditions, because of the nature, the participation of Azal Mansouri, first astronaut from the United Arab Emirates, and international partners at the same time with Americans and Russians, different genders. We had several events that included exclusively women performing at the same time in the primary role. I think that all these things that to the passersby may seem secondary, to me those were the core of what happened, because the science goes on, and the science that we perform on the space station is important, stays important. It's the core business, but the legacy of this cooperation and this integration is what one day will change the world.
3 astronauts still remain on board the ISS: Dr. Andrew Morgan, Jessica Meir, and Russian cosmonaut Oleg Skripalka, who is now the new ISS commander. They'll be joined in early April when NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy and Russian cosmonauts Nikolai Tikhonov and Andrei Bobkin will launch to the station. Reporting from the Washington News Bureau, I'm Rick Potlock. Back to David Denault.
Rick, you found a little old lady who's a ham?
David, a couple episodes back, we learned about a 17-year-old NASA intern. We'll learn about a 96-year-old amateur radio enthusiast who spoke to ISS astronaut commander Luca Parmitano. And just for clarification, I'll say it again. Gene Moffat from Toronto is 96 years old. The ham radio operator has been connecting with other operators around the world for many years. Thanks to a relay connection in northern Italy, Moffat spoke with Parmitano, satisfying one of her bucket lists. And as Parmitano said,
really honored to be the one talking to you.
After it was over, Gene had this to say.
The highlight of my life, absolutely, the highlight of my life. I wish I could have understood what the commander was saying now.
Following the death of her husband more than 30 years ago, Moffat started volunteering at the Ontario Science Centre and helped set up the ham radio shack with the call sign VE3OSC. Truly an unbelievable moment for a lady born 34 years before NASA was even formed.
This is Victor Echo 3 Oscar Sierra Charlie saying 73 and all the best.
For those unfamiliar with ham radio vernacular, 73 means best regards. Reporting from the Washington News Bureau, I'm Rick Potlock, 73.
Oh, roger that, Rick. And stand by for my special announcement.
50 years ago, we pioneered a path to the moon. The trail we blazed cut through the fictions of science and showed us all what was possible.
Very pretty out here.
We're going.
We are going.
We are going.
We're going.
Are you going? To join us to be among the first to witness American astronauts to be launched from American soil on American rockets from the Kennedy Space Center. We are taking reservations.
For launch details and more, like us on Facebook. And I'd like to hear from you about America's return to space. Email me at david@aboutspace.today. And be sure to share our programs with your family and friends. And then join me next week when we find our way in space using the stars and a sextant. I'm David Denault, and this has been About Space Today.